I was standing in the hotel lobby, suitcase in hand, when my son Michael looked me dead in the eye and said, "Dad, we don't need you on this trip anymore. You can take a cab back home." 43 years I raised that boy. 43 years of baseball games, college tuition, helping him buy his first house, and there he was, at 50 years old, kicking his 72-year-old father out of a family vacation like I was some kind of inconvenience. His wife Linda smirked behind him. My grandkids wouldn't even look at me. Right there, in front of 30 strangers in that marble lobby, I felt something inside me snap. Not sadness, not hurt, something colder. Because what Michael didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been paying for this entire family trip from the beginning. The resort, the rental cars, the fancy dinners they'd been posting all over Facebook. All of it. And I had the receipts. More importantly, I had the power to make one phone call that would turn their little paradise vacation into a nightmare they'd never forget. Sometimes, your children need to learn that respect isn't optional. And sometimes, the old man they think they can push around is the one holding all the cards. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from? And if you want to hear more stories like this, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't believe how this ends. Let me back up 3 weeks. That's when Michael called me, all excited about this family reunion trip to Palm Springs. He said it would be good for me to get away, spend time with the grandkids, relax by the pool. I'm 72, recently widowed, and my son knows I've been lonely since his mother passed 2 years ago. So when he invited me, I thought maybe, just maybe, he was finally stepping up as a son should. "Dad, it'll be perfect," he said on the phone. "Just you, me, Linda, and the kids. Quality time together." His voice had that salesman smoothness he uses at his real estate job. I should have known something was off right then. But when you're a father who raised his son alone after the divorce, when you've sacrificed everything for that boy, you want to believe he's finally returning the love. I said yes, immediately. Immediately. Michael told me the resort was already booked, that he'd taken care of everything. All I needed to do was show up with my suitcase. He even offered to pick me up from my house. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like maybe I wasn't just the old man living alone in that big empty house. Maybe I still mattered to my family. The night before the trip, I couldn't sleep. I was excited like a kid before Christmas. I packed my best clothes, the polo shirts Martha had bought me before she got sick. I brought the new camera I'd purchased just to take photos of my grandkids. I even bought them gifts. A drone for 15-year-old Jake, a jewelry-making kit for 12-year-old Sophie. I wanted this trip to be perfect. Michael picked me up at 6 in the morning. He was in his new BMW, the one I'd helped him make the down payment on last year. $15,000 I gave him, telling him it was an early inheritance. He'd promised to pay me back but never did. I never pushed it. That's what fathers do, right? We give and don't keep score. The drive to Palm Springs took 3 hours. Michael talked the whole way about his real estate deals, about Linda's new interior design business, about Jake's grades, and Sophie's soccer team. He barely asked me one question about my life. Not about my health, not about how I was managing alone, not about the grief group I'd been attending. It was all about him, his family, his success. When we pulled up to the Mirage Vista Resort, my jaw dropped. This place was luxury. Palm trees lining the driveway, a massive fountain out front, valets in crisp uniforms, the kind of place that costs $500 a night minimum. I felt a little uncomfortable. This seemed too expensive, too fancy for a simple family trip. Linda and the kids were already there, waiting in the lobby. Sophie ran up and hugged me, which made my heart swell. Jake gave me a quick fist bump, too cool at 15 for real affection. Linda kissed my cheek, but I noticed how her smile didn't reach her eyes. She had that look, the one I'd seen 100 times over the years, like I was interrupting something. Michael grabbed my suitcase and said, "Come on, Dad, let's get you checked in." We walked up to the front desk together. The receptionist, a young woman with perfect teeth, smiled at us. "Welcome to Mirage Vista. Checking in?" Michael nodded. "Yes, reservation under Michael Harrison." She typed on her computer, then looked up confused. "I'm sorry, sir. I only see 2 rooms under your name, the family suite and the deluxe king. Is there another reservation?" Michael's face went blank for just a second. Then he turned to me with this awkward smile. "Oh, Dad, didn't I mention? You're sharing the family suite with all of us. Isn't that great? More time together?" My stomach dropped. The family suite. That meant I'd be sleeping on a pull-out couch in the living area, while Michael, Linda, and the kids had the bedrooms. At 72, with my bad back and sleep apnea machine, I'd be on a couch. No privacy, no real rest. But I smiled and said, "Sure, son, that's fine." We went up to the 5th floor. The suite was beautiful. 2 bedrooms, a living area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains, a kitchenette. But it was clear this was designed for 2 couples, not for an elderly father sleeping on the couch. Linda immediately claimed the master bedroom, sending the kids to the 2nd bedroom with twin beds. "You'll be comfortable here, Dad," Michael said, gesturing to the couch. It was a nice couch, I'll admit, but there was a coffee table 2 feet from where my legs would be, and the air conditioning vent blew directly onto it. I could already feel the ache in my joints just thinking about sleeping there for 5 nights. I unpacked my small suitcase in the corner of the living room, feeling like a guest who'd overstayed his welcome. Through the bedroom door, I could hear Linda on the phone with someone, laughing about finally getting away and having the perfect vacation. The kids were already in their swimsuits, begging to go to the pool. Michael was checking his phone, barely aware I existed. That first afternoon, we went to the pool. I sat in a chair under an umbrella, watching my grandkids swim. Michael and Linda lounged on premium cabana beds that I later found out cost $200 to rent for the day. They ordered cocktails, appetizers, more drinks. Every time the server came by, they signed the check without even looking at the price. I ordered a lemonade. The server said, "That'll be $12, sir. Would you like to charge it to a room?" I pulled out my wallet and paid cash. $12 for a lemonade. I'm not poor, but I'm careful with money. Always have been. When you grow up with nothing like I did, you learn to respect every dollar. By evening, Michael announced we were having dinner at the resort's steakhouse. "My treat," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. I felt relieved. Maybe he was going to take care of his old father after all. The restaurant was elegant. White tablecloths, chandeliers, a pianist playing soft jazz in the corner. The kind of place where the cheapest steak is $45. We sat down, and Michael ordered a bottle of wine that cost $90. I saw the price on the menu and nearly choked. Linda ordered the lobster. The kids both got filet mignon. Michael got the tomahawk ribeye for 2 and started eating like a king. I ordered the chicken breast, the least expensive thing on the menu at $32. Even that felt extravagant to me. Halfway through dinner, Michael's phone rang. He glanced at it, and his face changed. He stepped away from the table to take the call, leaving me with Linda and the kids. When he came back 10 minutes later, he looked stressed. "Everything okay?" I asked. He waved me off. "Just work stuff, Dad. Nothing important." But I knew my son. Something had rattled him. The rest of dinner was tense. He barely spoke, just kept checking his phone. When the check came, he signed it quickly without looking, and we left. Back in the suite, I pulled out my air mattress pump. I'd brought a small camping mattress, hoping to make the couch more comfortable. Linda saw it and laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh my God, Michael, your dad brought an air mattress to a luxury resort." She said it like I'd brought a tent and sleeping bag. Michael looked embarrassed. Whether of me or the situation, I couldn't tell. "Dad, you don't need that. The couch is fine." But it wasn't fine, and we both knew it. That night, I barely slept. The couch was too short, too firm, and the air conditioning made me freeze. I could hear Michael and Linda arguing in their room. Something about money, about overextending, about credit cards. I couldn't make out all the words, but the tone was clear. They were fighting about finances. The next morning, everyone was quiet at breakfast. We ate at the resort's buffet, another $45 per person. I watched Michael charge it to the room without flinching. I watched Linda pile her plate high with food she wouldn't finish. I watched my grandkids waste their meals, leaving half-eaten pancakes and untouched fruit. After breakfast, Michael said he needed to run some errands in town. Linda took the kids to a spa that offered teen facials. I was left alone by the pool again, this time without even a book to read. I sat there watching other families, happy families, and wondered how I'd ended up feeling so invisible to my own son. That afternoon, I decided to take a walk around the resort. I found myself at the front desk, the same receptionist from check-in. She smiled at me. "How's your stay, sir?" I smiled back. "It's lovely, thank you." Then, not really knowing why, I asked, "Can I ask you something? The charges for our suite, they're being billed to Michael Harrison's room, correct?" She checked her computer. "Actually, sir, the charges are being split between 2 credit cards. One under Michael Harrison and one under—" She squinted at the screen. "Under your name, Robert Harrison." My blood went cold. "I'm sorry. What?" She looked concerned. "Is there a problem, sir?" I asked her to print out the itemized bill for the past 2 days. When she handed it to me, my hands shook. The suite was being charged to my credit card, the one I'd given Michael years ago for emergencies, telling him to only use it if he absolutely needed to. The cabana rentals, the $90 wine, the spa treatments Linda had just taken the kids to, all on my card. Over $4,000 in 2 days. I walked back to the suite in a daze. My own son was charging everything to me without asking, without telling me, letting me think he was treating the family while draining my account. When I got back to the room, Michael was there alone, sitting on the couch where I'd slept, looking at his laptop with a worried expression. "Michael," I said, my voice steady despite my anger, "we need to talk about the credit card." His face went white. Actually, white. He closed his laptop quickly. "Dad, I can explain." I waited. He ran his hand through his hair, exactly like he used to do as a boy when he was caught in a lie. "I was going to tell you. Things have been tight lately. And I thought, you thought you'd put a $5,000 vacation on your father's credit card without asking?" My voice was getting louder now. I'm not a man who yells often, but I was beyond furious. Michael stood up, defensive. "Dad, it's not $5,000, and you have the money. Mom's life insurance left you comfortable. What else are you going to spend it on?" There it was, the truth. He saw me as a wallet. The life insurance money from Martha. Money she'd wanted me to use for my final years, for my care if I got sick, for my peace of mind. Michael saw it as his. "That money is for my future, Michael. For my health care, for assisted living if I need it someday. Not for your luxury vacations." He scoffed. Actually scoffed at me. "Dad, you're 72 and healthy as a horse. You don't need assisted living. You're sitting on $250,000, while Linda and I are drowning in debt. I thought you'd want to help your family." The manipulation in his voice was clear now. This wasn't a son asking his father for help. This was a con. "How much debt, Michael?" He looked away. "It doesn't matter." "How much?" $200,000, okay? Credit cards, the house, business loans for Linda's company that failed. We're maxed out everywhere. The bank is threatening to foreclose." My heart broke a little. Not for Michael's situation, he'd made his own choices, but for the fact that my son would rather steal from me than have an honest conversation. "So your plan was to what? Put this entire trip on my card and hope I wouldn't notice?" He at least had the decency to look ashamed. I was going to pay you back. Once we close the Henderson deal next month, I'll have commission. I'll pay you back everything, I swear. I'd heard that promise before, many times. When have you ever paid me back, Michael? He didn't answer. The room felt smaller suddenly. Through the window I could see the pool, families laughing and swimming, and here I was, fighting with my son about money, about respect, about basic human decency. I want the card back, I said quietly. What? The emergency credit card I gave you? I want it back right now. Michael's face hardened. The shame was gone, replaced by something uglier. Entitlement. You're really going to do this? You're going to ruin this family trip over money? You ruined it the moment you decided to lie to me. He stood up, grabbed his wallet, and threw the credit card at me. It bounced off my chest and fell to the floor. Neither of us bent to pick it up. You know what, Dad? His voice was cold now. Ever since Mom died, you've become this bitter old man. You sit in that house alone, going to your grief groups, acting like the world owes you something. We invited you on this trip to cheer you up, to include you. And this is how you repay us? The words hit me like a physical blow. My grief groups. The place where I went every Thursday to talk about losing the woman I'd loved for 40 years. The place where I cried with other widowers who understood the emptiness of coming home to a silent house. Michael was using my grief, my pain, as a weapon against me. I bent down slowly, my knees cracking, and picked up the credit card from the floor. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, cold. You want to know what's bitter, Michael? Discovering your only son sees his widowed father as nothing more than a bank account. I walked to the door. I'm going for a walk. When I get back, we're going to talk about how this trip is going to work. I left before he could respond. I took the elevator down to the lobby, walked past the fountain, past the happy families checking in, and found myself at the resort's business center. There was a computer available. I logged into my bank account and stared at the charges. $4,263 in 2 days. The suite, the meals, the spa, the cabana rentals, even the valet parking. Everything. I sat there for 20 minutes, just staring at the screen. I thought about Martha. She would have been horrified. She always saw the best in Michael, made excuses for him when he disappointed us. But she also wouldn't have tolerated this level of disrespect. Rob, she used to tell me, sometimes you have to let people face consequences, or they never learn. I called the front desk from the business center phone. Yes, this is Robert Harrison in Suite 512. I need to speak with a manager, please. Within 5 minutes, a man in a navy suit appeared. His name tag read, David Chen, Guest Services Manager. He shook my hand with genuine concern in his eyes. Mr. Harrison, how can I help you? I explained the situation calmly. The credit card I'd given my son for emergencies, the charges I hadn't authorized, my desire to separate the bills. David listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he nodded. Mr. Harrison, I completely understand. We can absolutely split the charges. Going forward, would you like your credit card removed from any room charges? Yes, I said, and I'd like to book my own room. A single. Whatever you have available. David checked his computer. We have a deluxe queen available starting tonight. It's on the 3rd floor, Mountain View. I can move you there immediately, and we'll only charge you the standard rate, not the suite rate. The relief I felt was overwhelming. My own room, my own space, my own dignity. I went back to the suite to pack my things. Michael was gone, probably back at the pool with Linda and the kids. I quickly gathered my clothes, my medication, my air mattress that Linda had mocked. I left the gifts I'd brought for Jake and Sophie on the counter. I didn't want to give them in anger. As I was zipping up my suitcase, the door opened. Linda walked in, surprised to see me packing. Robert, what are you doing? Her voice had that fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. I didn't even look at her. Moving to my own room? She laughed nervously. Don't be ridiculous. Michael told me you two had a little disagreement, but you can't just leave. What will the kids think? I turned to face her. The kids will think their grandfather values himself enough not to sleep on a couch while being financially exploited. Her face changed. The mask dropped. Exploited? You're being dramatic. You have more money than you know what to do with. Sitting alone in that big house? We're your family. Helping family isn't exploitation. I picked up my suitcase. Helping family is when someone asks. What Michael did is called theft. And what you're doing right now is called enabling. Linda's face flushed red. You selfish old man. Do you know how much stress Michael is under? How hard he works? We're drowning. And you're worried about a few $1,000s that you'll never even spend. A few $1,000s? As if that was the point. As if the money mattered more than the betrayal, the lies, the fundamental lack of respect. Linda, I'm going to say something I should have said years ago. You've never liked me. You've tolerated me because I'm Michael's father, because I helped you buy your first house, because I babysat your kids when you needed me. But you've never respected me. And you know what? I'm done pretending that's okay. I walked toward the door. She actually blocked my path. If you leave this room, if you make a scene, you'll regret it, Robert. Michael will cut you off completely. You'll never see your grandkids again. There it was. The threat I'd been half expecting for years. The nuclear option. But something had shifted in me during those 20 minutes at the computer. I wasn't afraid anymore. Linda, do you really think threatening a 72-year-old widower with losing his grandchildren is going to work? Do you think I've lived this long without learning how to spot manipulation? I stepped around her. I'll be in room 314 if Michael actually wants to have an honest conversation. Otherwise, I'll spend the rest of this trip enjoying my own company. I went down to my new room. It was smaller than the suite, simpler, but it was mine. I unpacked properly this time, hanging my clothes in the closet, setting up my CPAP machine on the nightstand, putting my book on the table by the window. I sat in the chair and looked out at the mountains, feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Peace. I know some of you are probably thinking I should have just left and gone home. But I need you to understand something. I wasn't done teaching my son a lesson. Sometimes you have to stand your ground. Have you ever been in a situation like this? Let me know in the comments. My phone started buzzing. Text after text from Michael. Dad, you're being unreasonable. This is embarrassing. The kids are asking where Grandpa went. You're ruining everything. I turned my phone off completely. Not because I was hiding, but because I needed quiet to think about my next move. That evening, I ordered room service. A simple burger and fries on my own card, charged to my own room. It was the best meal I'd had since arriving. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, watching the sunset over the mountains. My phone was still off. I imagined Michael and Linda scrambling at dinner, trying to explain to Jake and Sophie why Grandpa wasn't there. Good. Let them squirm. Around 9 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Sophie, my 12-year-old granddaughter, alone. My heart clenched. I opened the door. Hey, sweetheart. She looked up at me with those big brown eyes. Grandpa, why did you leave? Did we do something wrong? I knelt down to her level, ignoring the pain in my knees. No, honey. You and Jake did nothing wrong. Grandpa just needed his own space to sleep better. You know how old people are with their backs. I smiled at her. She didn't smile back. Mom and Dad are fighting a lot. They keep saying your name. Are you mad at them? Kids always know. They always sense the truth even when adults try to hide it. Your dad and I had a disagreement, but it's adult stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. She nodded but didn't look convinced. Can you come to breakfast with us tomorrow? I miss you. My heart broke a little. Of course I'll come to breakfast. I promise. He hugged me tight, then ran back down the hallway. I watched her go, feeling the weight of this whole situation settling on my shoulders differently now. I couldn't sleep that night despite the comfortable bed. I kept thinking about Sophie's face, about Jake who probably didn't understand why his grandfather had suddenly vanished. They were innocent in all this, but I also knew that if I backed down now, if I let Michael's behavior slide, I'd be teaching those kids a terrible lesson. That manipulation and disrespect are okay if you're family. The next morning, I met them at the breakfast buffet. Michael and Linda were cold, barely acknowledging me. Jake gave me a quick, "Hey, Grandpa," before burying his face in his phone. But Sophie sat next to me, chattering about the pool, about the cool lizards she'd seen, trying to fill the awkward silence with her innocent joy. Michael finally spoke. "Dad, we need to settle the bill situation." His voice was formal, businesslike. "I've spoken with the front desk. They said you had all the charges separated." I nodded, cutting my eggs. "That's correct," Linda scoffed. "So that's it? You're just going to make us pay for everything ourselves, when you know we can't afford it?" I set down my fork. "Linda, Michael told me yesterday that you're $200,000 in debt, that you've maxed out credit cards, that the bank is threatening foreclosure. Is that true?" She looked at Michael, then back at me. "That's private financial information. It stopped being private when my credit card got charged $4,000 without my permission." The table went silent. Jake looked up from his phone, suddenly interested. Sophie's smile faded. Michael's jaw clenched. "We're not discussing this in front of the kids." I stood up, leaving my half-eaten breakfast. "You're right, we're not. Because this conversation should have happened in private 3 weeks ago when you invited me on this trip. But instead, you tried to steal from me." I walked away from the table. Behind me, I could hear Linda hissing at Michael, hear Sophie asking what was happening. I felt terrible involving the kids, but maybe they needed to see that even fathers have limits, that even grandpas deserve respect. I spent the rest of the morning by myself, reading my book under an umbrella by the smaller, quieter pool on the other side of the resort. Around noon, Michael appeared. He sat in the chair next to me without asking. We sat in silence for 5 minutes. Finally, he spoke. "I'm sorry." 2 words, but his tone was still defensive, still conditional. "I'm sorry that this got so messed up. I should have told you about the charges." Should have told me, not should have asked permission. The apology was hollow. "Michael, do you understand what you actually did wrong?" I closed my book and looked at him. He shifted uncomfortably. "I used your card without asking." "You stole from me." "Dad, that's harsh. I'm your son, not some criminal. You took money that wasn't yours without permission. What would you call it?" He stood up, frustrated. "I would call it family helping family, something you apparently don't believe in anymore." I stood up too, facing him. "I've helped you your entire life, Michael. I paid for your college when your mother and I could barely afford it. I gave you $15,000 for a car down payment. I babysat your kids every weekend for 5 years. I paid for Sophie's braces and Jake's hockey equipment. Don't you dare tell me I don't help my family." His face was red now. "Then why won't you help us now? Why won't you pay for this trip? It's pocket change to you." There it was, the real issue. Not that he'd stolen from me, but that I'd caught him and stopped it. "Because you didn't ask, Michael. Because you lied. Because you treated me like an ATM instead of your father. Because you let me think you were treating the family when you were spending my money." Looking back now, I realize this was the turning point. This was when I understood that my son had become someone I didn't recognize. But what happened next changed everything. Stay with me. "You know what your problem is, Dad?" Michael's voice was getting louder. A few people at the pool were starting to look at us. "Your problem is you can't let go. You can't let go of Mom. You can't let go of control. You can't let go of money. You're going to die alone in that house, with a bank account full of money, and nobody around who cares." The cruelty of it took my breath away. I'm sure my face showed the pain, because for a moment, just a moment, Michael looked like he regretted it. But then he doubled down. "It's true. You're pushing away the only family you have left because you're too stubborn to help when we need you most." I picked up my book and towel. "I've helped you your whole life, but I won't be stolen from. There's a difference." I went back to my room and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. Not from anger anymore, but from hurt. My own son had looked me in the eye and told me I'd die alone. Part of me wanted to book a flight home, leave this disaster behind. But another part of me knew that if I left now, Michael would never learn. He'd tell himself I was the unreasonable one, the bitter old man who ruined a family trip. That afternoon, I received a call from the front desk. "Mr. Harrison, this is David Chen. I wanted to inform you that there's been an incident with the credit card on file for Suite 512. My stomach dropped. "What kind of incident?" "The card was declined for this afternoon's room service charges. They're trying to use other cards, but those are being declined as well." So they'd maxed out everything, every credit card, every backup plan. And now they were stuck at a luxury resort they couldn't afford, having burned the bridge with the one person who could have helped them. "Thank you for letting me know, David." "Of course, sir. I also wanted to mention that checkout is in 3 days. If the bill isn't settled by then, we'll have to take further action." Further action. That meant collection agencies, possibly even police involvement depending on the amount. Michael had really done it this time. He'd backed himself into a corner with no way out. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part, the father part, felt sick. That evening, there was another knock on my door. This time it was Jake. My 15-year-old grandson stood there, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. "Grandpa, can we talk?" I let him in. He sat on the chair by the window, looking more grown up than I remembered. "Dad sent me, didn't he?" Jake nodded. "He told me to ask if you'd come back and help pay for the rest of the trip. At least he was honest about it." "What did he tell you about why I left?" Jake shrugged. "Just that you guys had a fight about money. Mom said you were being selfish." I sat down on the bed, facing him. "Jake, did your dad tell you he charged $4,000 to my credit card without asking me first?" Jake's eyes widened. "4,000? No. He said it was like a few hundred. It was 4,000. And he knew he was doing it. He had my emergency credit card, and he decided to use it for this entire trip without telling me." Jake processed this information. "That's messed up, Grandpa." "Yeah, it is. But you have the money, right? I mean, you could help them." It was an honest question from a 15-year-old who didn't fully understand the complexity yet. "Jake, imagine one of your friends took money from your wallet without asking. Even if you had enough money, would that be okay?" He thought about it. "No, I'd be pissed." "Right. Now imagine that friend then got mad at you for being upset, told you that you were selfish for not just giving him more money, and said you'd die alone if you didn't help him." Jake's face showed he was starting to understand. "Dad said that? Your father said a lot of things. But the point is, this isn't about the money, Jake. It's about respect. It's about being treated like a person, not a wallet." We sat in silence for a minute. Then Jake said something that surprised me. "My friend Tyler's dad does this to his grandma all the time. Takes money, makes her feel guilty. Tyler hates it." "What does Tyler's grandma do?" "Nothing. She just keeps giving him money because she doesn't want to lose her grandson." Jake looked at me directly. "But Tyler says he wishes she'd stand up to his dad. He says it's embarrassing watching an old lady get treated like that." Old lady. The word stung a little, but I understood what he meant. "Jake, I want you to know something. I love you and your sister more than anything in this world. But I also need to love myself enough not to let people use me, even if those people are my own family. You understand?" He nodded slowly. "I think so." He stood up. "For what it's worth, Grandpa, I don't think you're being selfish. I think Dad messed up." Darkened after Jake left. I sat in the dark room for a long time. The sun had set, and the mountains were just dark shapes against the sky. My phone, which I'd turned back on, buzzed with a message from Michael. "Fine, you win. We'll figure it out ourselves. Hope you're happy." The manipulation was still there, the guilt trip, but it wasn't working anymore. The next morning, I woke up to find my door practically being knocked down. It was Michael, and he looked panicked. "Dad, we need to talk. Right now." I let him in, still in my pajamas. He paced the small room like a caged animal. The resort manager just came to our suite. They're threatening to call the police if we don't settle the bill. Dad, they're talking about fraud charges. How much is the bill? $11,000. He ran his hands through his hair. We've maxed out every card. The bank froze our accounts because we're behind on the house payment. Linda's parents won't help. Her sister won't return our calls. Dad, we're trapped here. They won't let us leave until we pay. It was finally happening. The consequences he'd been running from for years. What do you want me to do, Michael? My voice was calm. He looked at me desperately. I need you to pay the bill. Please, I'm begging you. I know I messed up. I know I lied. I know I disrespected you. But please, don't let your son go to jail over this. And there it was. The moment I'd been both dreading and waiting for. I sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at my son. Really looked at him. His face was pale, his eyes were red from lack of sleep, and his expensive resort clothes were wrinkled. He looked like a man who'd finally run out of places to run. This was the moment every parent dreads, watching your child face the full consequences of their choices. But it was also the moment I'd been waiting for since that phone call 3 weeks ago. Sit down, Michael. He sat in the chair, bouncing his leg nervously. I took a deep breath. I'm going to tell you a story. When you were 10 years old, you stole $20 from your mother's purse to buy baseball cards. Do you remember? He nodded slowly. She found out, made me return them, made me apologize to the store owner. I was humiliated. Do you remember what she said to you? He thought for a moment. She said that stealing is stealing, no matter who you take from. That family doesn't make theft okay. It makes it worse. I nodded. Your mother was right. And now here we are, 28 years later, and you've stolen from me. Not $20 for baseball cards, but thousands of dollars for a luxury vacation. The amount doesn't matter. The principle is the same. Michael's eyes filled with tears. Real tears this time, not manipulation. Dad, I'm so sorry. I've been drowning for so long and I didn't know what else to do. The business failures, the debt, Linda's spending, it all spiraled out of control. I thought if I could just have one nice trip, if I could give my family one good memory before everything fell apart, maybe it would be worth it. So you decided to steal from your widowed father to do it? My voice wasn't angry anymore, just sad. Michael, you could have called me. You could have told me the truth about your financial situation. You could have asked for help, but instead, you lied, you manipulated, and you used my grief as a weapon when I caught you. He put his face in his hands and started sobbing. I let him cry for a few minutes. There was a part of me that wanted to immediately fix everything, to pull out my credit card and make all his problems disappear like I'd done so many times before. But Martha's voice echoed in my head. Sometimes you have to let people face consequences, or they never learn. This was that moment. This was when I had to decide what kind of father I really was. Michael, look at me. He raised his head, tears streaming down his face. I'm going to pay your bill, but not because you deserve it, and not because I'm afraid of you going to jail. I'm paying it because those kids in that suite don't deserve to watch their father get arrested. Because Sophie and Jake are innocent in all of this. Are you understanding what I'm telling you? He nodded, relief washing over his face. But I wasn't done. However, this comes with conditions. Non-negotiable conditions that you're going to agree to right here, right now, or I walk away and let the police handle it. His relief turned to anxiety again. What conditions? I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app where I'd been writing all night. First, you and Linda are going to counseling, financial counseling and marriage counseling. I'm going to pay for 6 months of sessions, but you have to actually go and do the work. He nodded. Second, you're going to sell your BMW. That car payment is bleeding you dry, and it's a symbol of the lifestyle you can't actually afford. You're going to buy something practical and used. Third, Linda's going to get a real job. Not another business venture, not another opportunity, but a steady paycheck with benefits. And you're going to take whatever real estate commissions you make and put them directly toward your debt, not toward vacations or luxuries. Michael was listening carefully now, and I could see him actually processing instead of just waiting to argue. Fourth, and this is the most important one, you're going to sit down with Jake and Sophie and explain to them what happened here. Not your version where you're the victim and I'm the bad guy, but the truth, that you made bad financial decisions, that you stole from your father, and that actions have consequences. You're going to teach them the lesson your mother tried to teach you 28 years ago. Michael wiped his face. Anything else? Yes. You're going to pay me back. Not the full $11,000 right away, but $500 a month until it's paid off. It'll take you over a year, maybe 2. And every month when you write that check, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember what it felt like to be so desperate that you had to beg your father for help after you stole from him. He looked down at his hands. I understand. Do you? Do you really understand what you did to me this week? You didn't just steal money, Michael. You stole my trust. You made me feel like my only value to you was my bank account. You attacked my grief over losing your mother. You made me feel small and worthless in front of strangers. Money I can replace. Trust is harder. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Michael said something I wasn't expecting. I've become just like her, haven't I? Just like Mom's father. I was stunned. Martha's father had been a con man, always working an angle, always borrowing money he never paid back. Martha had spent her whole life trying to be different from him, and we'd both hoped Michael would never inherit those traits. I didn't want to say it, I admitted. But yes, I've seen pieces of him in your behavior lately. The entitlement, the manipulation, the belief that the world owes you something. Michael's face crumbled again. Mom would be so disappointed in me. Your mother loved you unconditionally, but she also believed in accountability. She would want you to fix this, to become the man she raised you to be. Michael stood up and walked to the window. The morning sun was hitting the mountains, making them glow orange and pink. It was beautiful, this view that had been wasted on anger and conflict. Dad, can I ask you something? I nodded. Why didn't you just leave? Why did you stay and let me face this instead of just flying home and washing your hands of us? It was a good question. Because leaving would have taught you that you can push people away without consequences. It would have taught Jake and Sophie that when family hurts you, you run. But staying, making you face what you did while still being here, that's the harder lesson. That's what real love looks like. It's not always comfortable or pretty, but it's real. Michael turned back to face me. I don't deserve you as a father. Maybe not right now, but you can work toward deserving it again. That's what the next year is about. Not about paying me back the money, but about rebuilding the trust, about becoming the man your mother believed you could be. We stood there, father and son, separated by hurt, but connected by something stronger than anger. One more thing, I said. Linda needs to apologize to me. A real apology, not that fake sweetness she uses when she wants something. She threatened me yesterday, told me I'd never see my grandkids again if I left. That crosses a line that can't be uncrossed without a genuine acknowledgement of how wrong it was. Michael nodded. I'll talk to her. We walked together down to the front desk. David Chen was there, professional as always, but with concern in his eyes. Mr. Harrison, how can I help you? I pulled out my personal credit card, not the one I'd given Michael. I'd like to settle the bill for Suite 512. David looked surprised, but pleased. Of course, sir. Let me pull that up for you. While David was processing everything, Michael stood next to me quietly. I could feel the weight of shame coming off him in waves. The total came to $11,347. I handed over my card without flinching, even though internally I was calculating how many months of careful budgeting this would take from my retirement funds. All set, Mr. Harrison. Is there anything else I can help you with today? I looked at Michael. We're checking out a day early. All of us. My son has some work to do at home. Michael nodded in agreement. David processed our early checkout, waiving the fees without me even having to ask. I hope despite the difficulties, you found some peace here, Mr. Harrison. I did, I said honestly. More than I expected. We went back upstairs where Linda and the kids were waiting in the suite, packed and ready. Linda looked nervous, probably expecting me to tear into her, but I was too tired for more fighting. Linda, Michael and I have talked. He'll explain everything to you. But I need to hear from you that you understand what happened here was wrong. She looked at Michael, then back at me. For a moment I thought she'd argue, defend, deflect, like always. But then something in her face shifted. Maybe it was seeing her husband broken. Maybe it was the reality of how close they'd come to real legal trouble. Robert, I'm sorry. I was desperate and scared, and I took that out on you. I said horrible things. I was wrong. It wasn't the most eloquent apology, but it was real. I could hear it in her voice. Thank you, Linda. I hope you and Michael can work together to build something more stable for your family. Those kids deserve better than this chaos. Sophie hugged me then, tight around my waist. Are you coming home with us, Grandpa? I knelt down, ignoring my protesting knees. No, sweetheart. I'm going to stay one more day here by myself, just to relax and think. But I'll see you next weekend at my house for dinner. How does that sound? Her face lit up. Can we make your special spaghetti? We absolutely can. Jake came over and gave me a fist bump. But this time, he pulled me into a quick hug too. Thanks for not being like Tyler's grandma, he whispered. I wasn't entirely sure what he meant, but I understood the sentiment. We said our goodbyes in the lobby. It was awkward and emotional, but it was real. I watched them drive away in Michael's BMW, the car he'd soon have to sell, and felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness for what this trip had become, but also hope for what might come from it. I spent that last day at the resort truly relaxing for the first time. I had a massage, sat by the pool reading my book, ordered room service without checking the price. I'd earned this peace. That evening, I called my grief group facilitator, Helen. Robert, we missed you at Thursday's session. How was the family trip? I told her everything, the whole messy story. She listened without interrupting, her therapist training keeping her neutral. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Robert, do you feel good about how you handled this? I feel tired, I admitted. But, yes, I think I did the right thing. I didn't abandon him, but I didn't enable him either. That's the hardest balance to strike as a parent. You should be proud of yourself. Not many people have the strength to hold that line. Her words meant more than she probably knew. Helen, do you think Martha would have approved? I think Martha would have done exactly what you did. She believed in tough love when it was needed. She also believed in second chances. You gave Michael both. I hung up feeling validated in a way I hadn't felt since this whole thing started. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not just because of the comfortable bed, but because I'd finally stood up for myself in a way I should have done years ago. The next morning, I checked out and took a cab to the airport. As we drove away from Palm Springs, I looked back at those beautiful mountains and thought about everything that had happened. A trip that should have been about family togetherness had become about setting boundaries. A vacation that should have been relaxing had become a battlefield. But maybe that's what had needed to happen. On the plane home, I sat next to a woman about my age who was reading a book about family dynamics. We started chatting, and eventually I found myself telling her a condensed version of my story. She listened with knowing eyes. My daughter did something similar to me last year, she said. Took out credit cards in my name. I pressed charges. You pressed charges against your own daughter? She nodded firmly. I did. She needed to learn that I wasn't a resource to be exploited. It destroyed our relationship for 6 months. But then she got sober, got help, and now we're rebuilding. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people hit bottom. Her words stayed with me the whole flight home. When I got back to my house, the one Michael thought was too big for me, I walked through each room and felt grateful. This was my space, bought with money I'd earned honestly, filled with memories of a woman who'd loved me genuinely. I didn't need my son's approval of my life or my choices. I didn't need to justify my existence by being useful to him financially. That weekend, true to my promise, Michael and Linda brought the kids over for dinner. We made spaghetti together, Sophie helping me with the sauce, Jake setting the table. Michael and Linda were quiet, almost timid, like teenagers meeting their girlfriend's parents for the first time. It was strange, but necessary. We were starting over, building something new on more honest foundations. After dinner, while Linda and the kids were in the living room, Michael pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Dad, I wrote you a check for the first payment, $500. He handed me an envelope. I opened it and saw the check, his handwriting careful and deliberate. "I also wanted to show you this." He pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot of an appointment. "First counseling session is on Tuesday. I'm proud of you, son." And I meant it. This was the start of something. Maybe not a complete transformation, but a beginning. "There's something else," Michael said, looking nervous again. "I talked to Jake about everything. I told him the truth about what I did, about the stealing, about the consequences. He said something that hit me hard." "What did he say?" "He said, 'Dad, I'm glad Grandpa didn't just give you the money, because that would have taught me that I can mess up without consequences, too.' He's 15 years old, and he understood something I didn't." Michael's eyes were wet again. "I've been teaching him the wrong lessons his whole life, haven't I?" "Maybe some wrong lessons," I admitted, "but it's not too late to start teaching him the right ones. You're doing it right now by owning what you did, by making it right, by showing him that men fix their mistakes." We stood there in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made him lunches for school, where Martha had taught him to bake cookies, where we'd celebrated his college acceptance letter. 3 months later, I received a text from Michael with a photo attached. It was him standing next to a 10-year-old Honda Accord. "Sold the BMW. Feels good to be practical." I smiled and texted back, "Proud of you." That same week, Linda sent me a picture of her first paycheck from her new job as an office manager. "Not glamorous, but it's honest work. Thank you for pushing us to do this." The monthly checks kept coming. $500, every month like clockwork. Sometimes Michael would include a note. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Learning to live within our means. Jake asked me questions about money management. We had a good talk. Each note was a small piece of the bridge we were rebuilding between us. One evening, about 6 months after the trip, I was at my grief group when a new member came in. He was about 55, well-dressed, clearly uncomfortable being there. He introduced himself as Richard and said he'd just lost his wife to cancer. As we went around sharing, he mentioned that his adult children were pressuring him to sell his house and split the money with them. "They say I don't need all that space," Richard said, his voice shaking. "They say it's selfish to keep it when they could use the money for their families. But it's my home. It's where I lived with my wife for 30 years. Am I being selfish?" Everyone looked at him with compassion, but I was the one who spoke up. "Richard, let me tell you what I learned this year. You're allowed to have boundaries, even with your children, especially with your children. Love doesn't mean letting people take advantage of you. It means teaching them how to treat you with respect." I told him my story, the whole thing, right there in that circle of grieving widows and widowers. When I finished, Richard was crying. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." Helen, our facilitator, nodded at me with approval. After the meeting, 3 other people came up to me privately to share similar stories of adult children who saw their parents as ATMs rather than people. It was an epidemic, this entitled approach to aging parents. That night, I drove home thinking about how much had changed. Michael wasn't perfect. He still had moments of defensiveness, still struggled with old habits, but he was trying. He showed up for Sunday dinners. He called me just to check in, not just when he needed something. He'd finished 4 months of counseling and told me it had helped him understand his own patterns. Linda had surprised me the most. Away from the financial pressure, she'd become almost pleasant. She'd apologized again, more deeply this time, explaining that her own father had gambled away their family's money when she was young, and she'd sworn she'd never be poor again. That fear had driven her to make terrible choices. Understanding her didn't excuse what she'd done, but it helped me see her as human. Jake started coming over alone sometimes, just to hang out with his grandpa. We'd watch baseball games, and he'd ask me questions about my life, about Martha, about what it was like to be married for 40 years. "Do you think I'll find someone like Grandma?" he asked me once. "I hope you find someone even better," I told him. "Someone who challenges you to be your best self." Sophie took to calling me every Wednesday night, just to tell me about her week. She'd talk about school drama, about her friends, about the books she was reading. Sometimes, Linda would get on the phone and thank me for being there for Sophie, in a way her own grandfather had never been for her. These small moments of connection meant more than any amount of money ever could. A year after Palm Springs, Michael handed me a check for $500 and said, "That's the last one. We're paid in full." I looked at the check, the 24th one I'd received. "Actually," I said, tearing it up, "consider this last one forgiven. You've proven what you needed to prove." Michael stared at the torn check. "Dad, you don't have to do that." "I know I don't have to. I want to. You've done the work, made the changes, shown me that you learned the lesson. That's worth more than $500. He hugged me then, a real hug, the kind he used to give me when he was a boy and I was his hero. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, son." And for the first time in years, I believed we both meant it. That's my story. Looking back now, I realize that trip to Palm Springs was the best thing that could have happened to our family, even though it was painful. Sometimes you have to break something completely before you can rebuild it stronger. My son learned that he couldn't manipulate me anymore. My grandkids learned that boundaries are healthy, and I learned that standing up for myself didn't mean I stopped loving my family. It meant I finally loved myself enough to demand respect. What do you think? Would you have paid the bill? Would you have let him face jail time? Would you have handled it differently? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if you've dealt with something similar with your own family, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I share stories like this because I believe we all need to know we're not alone in these struggles. Family is complicated, but it's worth fighting for, as long as that fight includes respect, boundaries, and genuine love. Thank you for listening to an old man tell his story. Until next time, remember, you teach people how to treat you, and it's never too late to start teaching better lessons.